Hello students, let's proceed the chapter Dual Nature of Radiation and Matter. The next topic is photocell. Photocell is a device that makes use of photoelectric effect and hence it converts light energy into electrical energy. So, the device that converts light energy into electrical energy is called as photocell, and hence it makes the use of photoelectric effect. As we come to know about each and everything for the photoelectric effect, so let's see the photocell, which as a schematic of a photocell is shown in figure. So first of all, let's see the construction of photocell. Over here, it consists of a semi-cylindrical photosensitive material which is to be named as plate E, which is acting as cathode, and a wire loop over here is to be taken, which is to be called as collector C, and it will be acting as an anode, and it is to be supported in an evacuated glass. Over here we can say that it is made up of the quartz bulb also. The electrodes are connected to an external circuit. Here the external circuit is also shown in this diagram. So these two electrodes, cathode and anode, is to be connected to an external circuit which is having a high tension battery denoted by B and a microammeter which is to be denoted by nu A. Instead of the photosensitive metal plate, the photosensitive material can be pasted in the form of thin film on the inner walls of the glass bulb over here. So, we can say that photocell consists of an evacuated glass tube containing two electrodes, emitter E and collector C. The emitter is shaped in the form of a semi-hollow cylinder. Because of this shape, the photoelectrons which are emitted from here, and it is always kept at the negative potential of this battery, the maximum photoelectrons are to be attracted towards the collector, that is the plate C over there, without any deviation. And the collector, it is to be taken in the form of a metal rod and fixed at the axis of the semi-cylindrical emitter. The collector is always kept at the positive potential with respect to the emitter, and hence the glass tube is fitted on a non-metallic base and pins are provided at the base for the external to an external circuit having high tension battery B and a microammeter nu A. So this is all about the construction of a photocell. Now next let's see the working of photocell. So first of all, in the same schematic over here, when the light of suitable wavelength or suitable frequency falls on the cathode, that is the emitter plate E, photoelectrons are emitted, and these electrons are attracted towards the anode due to the applied electric field, and the generated photocurrent due to this is to be noted from the micrometer nu A. The emitter is to be connected to a negative terminal and collector is connected to a positive terminal. The working we can give in this sense only. That means when the emitter of the photocell is connected to the negative terminal of the battery and collector is to be connected to a positive terminal of the battery, and the radiation of the suitable frequency more than the threshold frequency of the material of the emitter is made incident on the emitter, the photoemission takes place. And these photoelectrons are attracted to the collector, which is positive with respect to the emitter. Thus, current flows in the circuit, and if the intensity of the incident radiation is increased, the photoelectric current is also increases. Hence, when light of suitable wavelength falls on the cathode, photoelectrons are emitted, and these electrons are attracted towards the anode due to the applied electric field, and the generated photocurrent is noted from the micrometer. So this is all about the construction and working of photocell. Now, next, let's see the uses of photoelectric cell. First of all, the photocell is used to operate control systems and in light measuring devices. Next, light meters in photographic cameras make use of the photocell to measure the intensity of light, and also the photocell can be used to switch on or off the street lights. Now, suppose the source of the ultraviolet radiation is kept near the passage or entrance of the, for example, mall or a house, and the light is made incident on the cathode of a photocell. The photocurrent is generated, and when the person passes through the passage or comes near the entrance, incident light beam is interrupted and photocurrent stops. This event can be used to operate a counter in counting devices. As well as the photocell is used to set a burglar alarm, and such arrangement can be used to identify traffic law defaulters by setting an alarm using the photocell. It is also to be used to reproduce sound from motion pictures. Here, the photoelectric cell is used in reproduction of the sound which is recorded on a movie film. In movie, film sound is recorded on the film of action in the form of a thin transparent strip. This thin transparent strip is called the soundtrack. The transparency of the soundtrack depends on the variation of frequency of sound recorded. Using photocell, sound is reproduced from the soundtrack. When the film is run in a projector, the light of the projector this soundtrack and falls on the photocell. Due to variation in soundtrack, variation of intensity of sound takes place, and thus the photoelectric current varies. As we had already seen that the photoelectric current is directly proportional to the intensity of the incident radiation, and this current is to be amplified and is fed to speakers, and in this way the sound is reproduced from the motion picture by using photocell. Now, one of the application of photoelectric cell is used in burglar alarm. Over here, the photocell is used in burglar alarm, and this device is kept near a safe to be protected from a thief. A burglar alarm is a device which is used for locating intruder, thief near the precious, valuable things like safe. The device consists of a photocell and an infrared source of light. The very important thing, the radiation that must be false on the photoelectric cell. Over here we are considering the infrared rays for the burglar alarm. So when the light from the infrared source is made continuously incident on the photocell, making photoelectric effect continuous. That means continuously the photoelectric current is measuring in a device. Thus the photoelectric current in a cell flows continuously over here, and when the path of the infrared light is obstructed by the thief, the light falling on the photocell is cut off and photoelectric current in the cell stops suddenly, and the relay circuit which is connected after this is activated, and hence a siren starts hooting. One of the application we had seen, photoelectric cell is used in photographic cameras to measure the intensity of light. Another application is to be given that the photoelectric cell is used in exposure meter also. The exposure meter is used along with the camera to know the correct time of exposure of film for having a good photograph. To have a good photograph, if the intensity of incident radiation is more, the exposure of film should be less. If the intensity of light is less, the exposure of film should be more. So the exposure meter is a device that attached to the camera which decides the exposure or correct time of exposure of the film there. The exposure meter consists of photoelectric cell with a sensitive millimeter, that means a sensitive milliammeter, and battery connected in series to it. The photoelectric current produced in the cell is directly proportional to the intensity of light directly. If deflection in the milliammeter is small, the photoelectric current is small. It indicates that the intensity of light is small. Thus, the exposure time should be more there. If the deflection in the milliammeter is large, the photoelectric current is large, and it indicates that the intensity of light is more. Thus, the exposure time should be less over there. So, this is all about the photocell and its application. Now, let's proceed the next part of the chapter, dual nature of radiation and matter. In the previous part, we have studied the dual nature of radiation. As radiation possesses dual nature, that means it has the particle-like nature as well as the wave-like nature. Now we will see the dual nature of matter. So the next topic is de Broglie hypothesis. In this hypothesis, the de Broglie proposed, on the basis of symmetry that existing in nature, that if radiation has dual nature, sometimes wave nature dominates and sometimes particle nature dominates. Matter also possesses dual nature there. Normally, we talk about matter as composed of particles, but there are situations where matter seems to show wave-like properties. Obviously, the matter will show the particle-like nature, but the question arises over here, in which situation where the matter seems to show wave-like properties. And this will become evident from the experiments on diffraction of electrons from nickel crystal that described in this chapter. The de Broglie used the properties, that is frequency nu and wavelength lambda of a wave, and proposed a relation to connect these with the particle properties, that is energy E and momentum P. And hence the momentum P carried by a photon of energy E is given by this relation, that is P is equals to E upon C, where P is the momentum of the particle and E is the energy of the photon, where C is the speed of light there. And this relation is valid for a massless particle that is to be traveling with the speed of light c according to Einstein's special theory of relativity. Now, by using the Einstein's relation for the energy E, over here the momentum P is to be written as per the relation E upon C. Energy of the photon is h nu, so the momentum is to be written as h nu upon C, and hence there is a relationship between the frequency and wavelength, so the momentum is given as h upon lambda, where nu upon c is equal to lambda there. So over here, de Broglie proposed that a moving material particle of total energy E and momentum P has associated with a wave analogous to a photon there. He then suggested that the wave and particle properties of matter can also be described by the relation which is to be given as per P is equals to h upon lambda for a photon. Thus, frequency and wavelength of a wave associated with a material particle of mass m and moving with velocity v. The very important factor is considering over here is the particle is moving with a velocity v, and it is to be given as energy E, as we know that is h nu. So from this equation we can say that the frequency is equals to E upon h, and also the momentum of the moving particle is to be given by the relation h upon lambda, and hence lambda is to be written as h upon p there. Now P is nothing but the momentum and is nothing but the product of mass and velocity. So here we can say that the wavelength of moving particle is to be given by the formula h upon mv, and the frequency of the moving particle is to be given as nu is equals to E upon h. Now these two are very important equations for the frequency and wavelength respectively when the material particle of mass m moving with velocity v. De Broglie referred to these waves associated with material particle and is to be termed as matter waves. The wavelength of the matter waves is to be given by the equation h upon mv, which is to be known as de Broglie wavelength. As per the de Broglie relation, lambda is equals to h upon p. P is nothing but the momentum of the moving particle, and hence lambda is equals to h upon mv. By knowing this de Broglie relation, here we can conclude that greater is the momentum, shorter is the wavelength, as we can see this equation, and hence from this equation the wavelength of matter waves is known as de Broglie relation. Now, for a particle of mass m that is to be moving with a velocity v, it must possess kinetic energy. Now we are considering that a general particle of mass m is to be moving with velocity v, and hence it possesses the kinetic energy, which is to be given as the kinetic energy of the moving particle is to be given as half into mv square. By using this equation, we can write the value of the velocity of the moving particle, that comes square root 2 into kinetic energy upon mass of the moving particle. Thus, by using the de Broglie relation, that is lambda is equals to h upon mv, we can determine the wavelength. What will be the wavelength of the moving particle of mass m? that is to be moving with the velocity v there. So over here we are substituting the value of the velocity in this equation in the de Broglie relation, and hence the equation comes to us h upon m into square root m upon 2 into kinetic energy. When we will solve this equation, we come to know that the wavelength of the moving particle will be h upon square root 2 into m into kinetic energy. Now, if we are considering a charged particle, so for a charged particle of charge q that accelerated from the rest, that means initially a charged particle of charge q is at rest, not moving, and when we applied a potential difference v on this rest charge particle, then it will start accelerating, and hence we can say that the charged particle will be start moving with certain velocity, and hence we have done certain work done on it by the amount q into v, and this provides the kinetic energy of the charged particle. Okay, and hence we can say that the kinetic energy of the moving charged particle is given as q into v there. Then by using the de Broglie relation, what would be the wavelength of the moving charged particle of charge q? So here we come to know that the wavelength lambda, as it is previously we had seen, is h upon square root 2 into m into kinetic energy. So over here we are substituting the value of the kinetic energy as q into v. That means we come to know the wavelength of the moving charged particle, which will be h upon square root 2 into mqv. Now this relation holds for any charged particle like electron, proton, or for even charged ion, where m corresponds to the mass of the charged particle. If we are considering the charged particle especially as electron, then for an electron moving through a potential difference of v, and that must be applied in volts only, the wavelength of the moving electron can also be determined, and hence the same equation which holds for any charged particle, that is lambda is equals to h upon square root 2 m into q into v. By using this general equation, we can write the wavelength of the moving electron, that is to be given as lambda is equal to h upon square root 2 into m e, that is the mass of the electron, into e, which is the charge of the electron, into v, which is the potential difference that must be applied to the electron, and hence electron is moving over there. And now we can determine the wavelength of the moving electron. Here we are considering the constant values of h, which is to be given as 6.63 into 10 raised to minus 34 joule second, then upon square root 2 into me is the mass of the electron, which is to be given as 9.11 into 10 raised to minus 31 kilogram, into charge of the electron, which is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb, into V that must be considering in volts. Okay, as the constant value of H, Planck's constant, mass of the electron and charge of the electron is substituted, and when we are calculating this much thing, so we come to know that the wavelength of moving electron will come to us around 1.228 into 10 raised to minus 9 meter, that must be divided with a square root of potential that must be applied in volt. Okay, as this potential is variable, that's why we are not considering its value over here. So in general, whatever the potential in volts is to be applied, here we can substitute the value, and hence we can determine the wavelength for the moving electron, and hence finally we can give the equation or the value of the wavelength for an electron that must be moving through a potential difference of V. So that wavelength is to be given here in nanometer, and that comes to us around 1.228 upon square root potential that must be given in volts. And experimentally, it is found that electrons, subatomic and atomic particles like protons and neutrons also exhibit wave properties. That means, as per the de Broglie hypothesis, as he proposed on the basis of symmetry existing in nature, that if radiation has dual nature, that means sometimes wave nature dominates and sometimes particle nature dominates. So de Broglie has suggested that matter may also possess dual nature, and here we come to know that the matter or moving particles, it exhibits the particle-like nature and also the wave-like nature when the particles are under the motion. And the wave property of electron was confirmed experimentally in 1927 by the scientists Division and Germer, that we will see next time in the next lecture. Thank you.